We once again have to talk about the Seattle Mariners and how bad they are. They just got swept by the Detroit Tigers. They only won one game of the six versus the Tigers. We're not going to go game by game because, frankly, I don't want to, and I don't think you guys want to hear about it. Then we're going to talk about a couple different things with this team, including some playoff implications that they have by being so bad against these bad baseball teams, a new rule possible for the MLB, and does Julio need more time on the injured list? We're then going to talk about the Pittsburgh Pirates series coming up starting tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 113 of the Hit It Here podcast, part of the Bleav Network, the Felix Hernandez episode, as it is the 12-year anniversary of his perfect game. And I am, unfortunately, tasked with talking about this with Joe. Joe, I don't want to know how you are. How are you?
I appreciate you pushing past your own emotions here and really diving deep to show some empathy. I don't care. I'm fine. Like, it happens. It's just another game. It's the worst game that you probably could have played, essentially. Like, this stretch of 3 games is probably the worst 3 that you could have played at this juncture of the season. I am past the point of being, I guess, upset. I frankly don't care. Like, I am void of emotion for how poor the baseball team played. Honestly, the first game was a very big, like, telltale sign that Detroit is the boogeyman in 2024. Just can't get past them. And odds-on favorite for the team to be the boogeyman for the Mariners in 2024, Detroit Tigers were never on my list, Colton. Never on my list. But there are plenty of other bets and things that you can take with BetOnline.
Thank you to BetOnline for being a sponsor for the Hit It Here podcast. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything online sports betting. The end of the MLB season is right around the corner, so teams are definitely ramping up for the playoff push. And with that, also, the NFL season is approaching soon. Preseason has already started. New Seahawks head coach Mike Macdonald potentially leading the Seahawks to a great season. And you can find all the best online betting trends with BetOnline. They've got every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. Head to the website to get in on the action. Use promo code Bleav, that's BLEAV, for your 50% free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. BetOnline. The game starts here.
The Mariners treated this series like it was almost like Felix's weekend. You know, the anniversary that you're hearing this, obviously Colton said it earlier, of the perfect game. The Mariners putting up 1, 2, and then 1 run across those 3 games is a damn near miracle. It's almost, you know, picturesque for what Felix used to receive during every single one of his starts during his career. Colton, you don't want to talk about this series game by game. Realistically, game 1, there's nothing good to say. Absolutely zero good things to say. Game 2, Bryan Woo shoved. That is a bright spot for that game. Bryan Woo was absolutely dominant. 7 innings again for Bryan Woo. Feels like if he's able to be efficient like he usually is, he is going to be able to push into that 7th inning pretty consistently. Of course, if he is cruising. That's the big question, is like, how much can you get out of Bryan Woo? Well, he's shown that he can give you 7, and that's about all that you can ask for from a starting pitcher when you're going up against the Detroit Tigers or just any team in general. They did not score any runs off of Bryan Woo. And then Jimmy Garcia gives up a 2-run bomb to Kerry Carpenter, and the rest is history for game 2. Game 3, it's pretty much the same story. You do not give the pitching staff any run support, and Bryce Miller, road splits. Bryce Miller goes out there, 7 scoreless, 9 Ks, and the bullpen decision is then turned over to Jimmy Garcia once again. You've scored 1 run at that point. Jimmy Garcia does not have a clean inning, and Javi Baez then punishes the Mariners for a 2-run home run off of Andres Munoz, having to come play cleanup duty.
Terrible pitch.
But even then, it's just like, you shouldn't have to go to Munoz in that situation. You shouldn't have to. And is the question then, would you, like, my thoughts when I saw Garcia coming in, why? I get that he's the setup man for Munoz. You're in the 8th inning. After the day yesterday, why are you having go back-to-back days? I know who's your other option? I'd honestly, and maybe I'm crazy and it's hindsight because I don't know what would have happened, give me Chargois in that situation. I don't care. I didn't want to see Garcia in this game today.
I personally think Garcia was the right move.
Okay.
I think that after the bad game he had yesterday, sending him right back out there, showing him that you still have confidence in him, is the right thing to do. And in my opinion, he pitched fine. Yes, one guy got on and that ended up being the kind of the killer. I still put the blame here on Andres because of how poorly executed that slider was. It's going to happen. It doesn't matter. Like, it's going to happen. Whether Andres threw that slider in the 9th inning and they gave up a run there, whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? One way or another, whether there's a guy on or not, that's kind of a killer. And horrible pitch from Andres. But it is what it is. He can't be perfect all the time. So in the end, the only game 1, whatever. It is what it is. You probably weren't going to scratch across more than 3 runs against Scooble anyway.
Mm-hmm.
That game was out of reach once George gave up 5. So that was whatever. And that game I'm not too worried about. It's games 2 and 3 that are the problem, because you were this close to winning both of them. You were that close to winning the series, and good baseball teams put away bad baseball teams. The Seattle Mariners are not a good baseball team. I broke my damn trident, Joe. I broke it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't deserve to be alive anymore. It is broken because of this series. This is one of those series that you look back on and you say, how on God's green earth do the Mariners outscore the Mets 22-1 over a 3-game series? Then they go on the road to Detroit and you get outscored 20-4. It just makes no sense how all of a sudden the Mets are a much better baseball team with a much better pitching staff. How do you then go out there and just all of a sudden you can't play baseball to save your life? I don't care that you had to face Scooble. Great. Again, that game, chalk it. Whatever. It's Scooble. The fact that you can't score on bullpen days and Kenta Maeda in 2024, it's pitiful. It's embarrassing. The team this team does not deserve to go to the playoffs. They don't. And it is nobody's fault except for the players. Anyone that's blaming Scott, anyone that's blaming Jerry, no. This team had the lead in the American League. They had everything going for them, and they blew it. Final answer. The team blew it. The players suck. They blew it. There is no other way to look at it than the players are the problem. I'm fine after this year firing everybody. Every single coach on that staff, fire all of them. But right now, this is on the players, and every single one of them. Josh Rojas, terrible. He's been awful. Polanco, terrible start to the year. Luke Raley has been terrible. This whole team has been terrible. And that flat out, it is not on anybody but the players.
And there's not really like a way forward. Like there have been moments where guys get hot or had great stretches to begin the year, like Rojas, but has very much so become a shell of that player that we saw at the beginning of the year. There's not like, and that's the frustrating part, is you see series like the Mets series get immediately followed up by this Tiger series. It's like, okay, what is going on? What is the larger issue at hand? And inconsistency has been the I think the tail of the tape for this Mariners team from the get-go. And is there like a savior for it? Would Julio Rodriguez have scored a run today? Well, given how his ankle looked in the second game, you probably can't really depend on him as often as maybe you had hoped once he was activated. It was a concern that I think a lot of people shared about Julio when he was activated. It's like, okay, is he really like going to be 100%? And there's some, I guess, discourse that he can't re-injure this injury. It's just going to aggravate it. So it's something that he'll have to play through and like grind through, is some of the like the words being chosen online. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I'm trusting that what those people are saying is true, that he cannot make this injury any worse. It's just going to be painful for him if he continues to play on it, just agitate it as it goes. And in that second game, he agitated it in an at-bat, a very crucial at-bat with the bases loaded. He does score a run there, but that run wouldn't ultimately matter at the end of that game. Colton, where are you at with Julio? Like what's your stance?
He shouldn't be on this baseball team right now. As someone that has dealt with ankle problems in the past, I totally understand how he, like, when he kind of backed up, he wasn't expecting to make that movement, how it aggravates that ankle. They're finicky and they're load bearing. All of your weight is on that. It's that easy to aggravate it. And then I don't necessarily buy into the whole he can't re-injure it or make it worse
because it's a sprain, but like I don't.
It's sprain, like that's how ligaments work. Like you can tear ligaments, so they're clearly not torn. Like I don't know, weird, but nonetheless, I think that he needs to get 100% healthy, and he needs to be, because if the Mariners want to have any hope in this godforsaken season that is 2024, which right now I have zero expectations for this team the rest of the way. Go out there, play baseball, I'm done. I don't care. But if they do want to have some sort of aspirations for the playoffs, first of all, they need to get their ass in gear. But second of all, you need a completely healthy Julio. The game 2 versus the Tigers, he looked fine, like offensively, but when you like, if you look at his box score, cool, right?
Sick.
And you look at the box score from game 1, he hit a double, sick. But then you see him hobbling around on that ankle. No, it's unacceptable that he's out there right now. He needs to be 100% healed before you can put him out there. I don't want to see Julio until September. I don't. It just makes zero sense in my opinion. And because of that, I think that he should go back on the IL. Personally, I do. Even a hurt Julio is better than Mitch Garver.
Yeah.
At DH.
And I think that's the conversation a lot of people are like posing, or like that point's like, okay, would you rather have Julio, who can do something while he's hurt, or a healthy Mitch Garver? Like, which one do you trust more, right?
Mm-hmm. But my question is, would you rather have hurt Julio the rest of the year or have fully healthy Julio from September onward? Like, I think I'd rather have fully healthy Julio and just deal with Mitch Garver or Justin Turner at DH for the next 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's where I'm at with it. But it doesn't matter, Joe, when you're playing baseball teams like the Tigers and the Angels, who are 2 of the worst teams in all of baseball, and the Mariners have not been able to figure out either of them.
It's the same problem, I think, going back to 2022, where they weren't really able to beat up on the bad teams. That was like their big issue, but they were able to do it more consistently than they are right now. And I think looking between those two teams, like what the differences are, I don't know if expectations for 2022 were lower compared to 2024 and how that is maybe affecting player morale. Like, I have no idea. There's no way inside to know like the inner workings of that dugout and that clubhouse without being there, without having some sort of vocalization from a player, a manager, a coach, whatever. I'm sure Scott Service's post game today wasn't good, if he even held one. Like, I'm sure there's going to be some sort of closed door meeting before they head to Pittsburgh, but it's just, you're losing games to the Tigers. Like you're saying, you lost 5 out of 6 to a team that's under 500. There's 59-63. They were 56-63 just 3 games ago, but you allowed them to inch closer to that 500 line. You're going to face the Pirates next, who they're not any better as far as record wise is concerned. They're 56-64, but you're not. The way that they have played the bad teams this year is not inspiring any confidence going forward. And if there are playoff aspirations, I mean, it doesn't help that the Astros have won 8 in a row, right? They're separating themselves from the Mariners, and they're just playing like a team that has like heart, that has aspirations, that they could go out there and muster up an at-bat when they need to, that drives in a key run. The Mariners just aren't doing that right now. And even with their skid, surprisingly enough, they're still within striking distance, I think, of both the division and the wild card. Of course, they can't play this poorly and have any aspirations for either, but they sit 3 games back of the division and 3.5 back of the wild card. The Royals are a team that were playing a lot better earlier on in the year, have started to like slow down a little bit. Same thing with the Red Sox. They're 5-5 over their last 10. The Royals are 4-6 over their last 10. The Mariners, 4-6 over their last 10, helpful because they just swept the Mets. There's a possibility. It's never an ideal situation when you led the division for however long they did, gave up as big of a lead as they did, that you're now like, okay, maybe we can play for wild card 3, haha. Like, that's not what you want to have to hope for. But there is something there, given what the team has shown earlier on in the year and how well this pitching has done. Like, the pitching staff, aside from that first game against the Tigers, the last 5, like the Mets series, they allowed 1 run, and then games 2 and 3 against the Tigers, they didn't allow any runs across those 14 innings against the Tigers. Like, the starting staff is on still a generational run. The offense has just been unbelievably the polar opposite of what the pitching staff has given you. There's hope, I think, that they can catch the playoff race for the wild card, but it really is going to come down to, like, can they play better down the stretch? And you said it, they're not playing well against the bad teams, so why would they?
They're 2-11 in the last 5 weeks against the Angels and the Tigers. Like, that's not what good baseball teams do. What good baseball teams do is they keep themselves afloat against other good baseball teams, and they beat up on the teams that are bad. That's how good baseball teams make the playoffs. Full stop. And it is just so unbelievably hard to watch this team right now, knowing that they're going into play the Tigers or the Athletics. Like, my God.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I do have one thing of good news. They don't play the American League Central the rest of the year.
Fantastic news.
It's over. All right, the Guardians beat up on them, the Royals, the Tiger. Like, my God. There's something in the water in the Central this year. And the fact that you can go in there and lose, get swept. Your second time you've gotten swept this year, by the way. Only the second time the Mariners have been swept. Which I think has a lot more to do with their pitching than it does their offense.
Mm-hmm.
This pitching staff it is great. It is a fantastic pitching staff. But if this offense doesn't get it going, and don't get me wrong, the additions of Justin Turner and Randy Arozarena have helped. The Mariners offense is better than it was prior to the trade deadline. But that's by a lot of outlier games where everybody's hot all at one time. Nobody has been hot for a sustainable amount of time except for maybe Cal Raleigh. He's the only one who has gone up there and been any semblance of good for 2-3 weeks at a time. Now I want to shift gears here, Joe, because what we talked about was that Bryce Miller and Brian Wu were both very good. They both threw 7 innings of shutout baseball. And apparently, Joe, MLB wants that to be more of a thing. They want to put like a 6-inning limit, or like you have to pitch at least 6 innings as a starting pitcher. This is never going to happen, but what the hell is this even about?
I don't know if it's about trying to make teams have to field more competitive rosters to try and like raise the floor of a lot of these teams that are like, I don't want to say like bottom dwellers, but like looking at the Tiger series specifically, they had 2 openers, right? Is that going to be disallowed with how
it
that
would be, yeah.
Right. So it's like this would be something that they couldn't do. And for whatever reason, I don't know why teams like to go with openers. If it's something that the pitcher that they want to use in long relief, it feels more comfortable after a turn through the order, or it's to shake up the opposing team's lineup and make them uncomfortable by giving them a new look as their second time through. Like, there's definitely ways to rationalize why teams want to use openers. I don't know why MLB would want to crack down on it, though. Like, it doesn't make sense to me, aside from teams being like, okay, you need to field a roster of 5 to 6 starters that can throw 6 innings pretty consistently. And I don't know the stipulations on, like, if a guy reaches a certain pitch count before the 6th inning or has a certain amount of earned runs, like how the position player pitching rule comes into effect. Like, you can only do it when you're down or ahead by a certain amount of runs. Like, does that change with this at all? Like, is there any way to, like, say George Kirby, he gives up 11 earned runs or whatever the hell he gave up. Obviously that changed to 6 because an error was changed, but like, are you then forcing George Kirby to go eat 6 innings? I mean, that's what happened essentially, but like for starters, maybe not as, I want to say poised, because he wasn't really poised. You get what I'm saying? Like, is a starter just gonna have to go eat 6 innings no matter what?
I guess so. And it's like, how can you even make that a rule when pitch counts are a thing?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it 6 innings or 100 pitches? Like, is that the rule? Like, I don't know. It makes no sense. And this is just another way of Manfred and all the other brainiacs up there at the top end of MLB trying to change the game in a way that doesn't need to be changed.
Big baseball.
Big baseball. Down with big baseball. Yeah, I don't know. I saw that rule today, and at first I thought it was a joke, like a fax on MLB thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or MLB on fax, whatever it is. And no, that was a real thing. And I don't know, just all the stupidity of today, I feel like just that was just like the spearhead.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just all trickled down from there of the Mariners game, my trident, my wall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It all just today sucks.
Not a good day.
Not a good day, Joe. But you know what might be a good day? It's tomorrow. There's always tomorrow.
The sun will come out
Tomorrow.
Bet your bottom dollar that tomorrow.
And starting tomorrow, Joe, the Mariners will be facing the Pittsburgh Pirates starting at 3:40 Pacific with a pretty generational pitching matchup, I'd say, in Paul Skeens and Logan Gilbert.
It's one where you look, and not to be the bearer of bad news, but the last two times that like a generational pitching, like Zach Wheeler versus Logan Gilbert, and then Tarek Skubal versus George Kirby twice. The Mariners are on the losing end in the last couple of there, but Paul Skeens, being able to see him going up against the Mariners, listen, expectations are low. They are low. His last start out, I believe it was against the Dodgers, didn't go, it wasn't his best, right? But he's young. He's going to have a little bit of hiccups along the way, but Paul Skeens has been the best pitcher in baseball. Like, I mean, he started the National League All-Star game for a reason. He has been, if not the best, like within the top 3 in the National League, maybe in all of baseball, right? Paul Skeens, he is that guy. The Mariners guy, though, Logan Gilbert, he's been that dude this year. Like, he has risen to the occasion. He has turned in or given in ace-like performances pretty much every step of the way. He's been a pillar of consistency, whereas the two, I'd say, behind him on the rotation, Luis Castillo and George Kirby, haven't really matched up with him as far as giving consistent, well, like just overall good starting. I can't even speak what I'm trying to say. Starting good overall starts throughout the entire year. Good overall starts the entire year. Do I think that the Mariners can win this game? Sure. I mean, the Pirates aren't a good baseball team, but the Mariners right now aren't a good baseball team either. I don't even want to look at the team WRC plus and stuff like I normally do. So I'm not going to, Colton. Like you said, you didn't want to go through the Tiger series game by game. I don't want to. I'm just hoping both starters go out there and throw gems and maybe we win the bullpen battle, which will be hard because Colin Holderman exists and I think David Bednar's active right now. So like there's arms in that Pirates pen that you need to watch out for. But I mean, Paul Skeens, it's going to be fun to watch.
Oh, I mean, I'm super excited to watch Skeens pitch, and I'm super excited to see Logan go. The fact that the Mariners were no hit today through like, what was it, 6 innings or whatever it was by Kenta Maeda and Alex Faedo. More like Alex Huedo and Kenta.
Did they not get a hit in that first inning, or is it all walks?
It was all walks. It was 4 walks.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't know that? Oh, I'm sorry I had to bring that up.
I didn't think about it because I just saw like the 1 hit, 1 run in the box score. And I've already repressed that game. So yeah, Skeens is throwing a perfect game against us.
Yep, 100%. So. He's throwing a perfect game. So yeah, game 2, Joe, Luis Castillo, Bailey Falter. You have the pitching advantage. You should. Anyway, Falter hasn't been terrible, but he's not great. He's not one of the better pitchers in the National League. Luis Castillo has been quite good recently.
So Castillo, if he continues to just go out there and throw quality start after quality start, you can't be mad. Like that's just, he's going to give you what you need. It's up to the offense to really make a difference here. Falter is a lefty on the bump, so we'll see a different change in lineup there. I want to say he was having a really good start to his year and has like kind of like slowed down a little bit. Kind of like broke out. I'd say this is like a bigger breakout year for him, but has kind of regressed back towards maybe a league average or his career average. I can't say that I'm confident going into the game. Like there's every single week, right? We get to this point where it's like looking at the preview for the next matchups and it's like, what do we say every single week? Waiting for something to change. We are literally the definition of insanity as a team, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Your starting pitcher is going to go out there and throw 7 innings of like 4 or 5 hit ball, maybe give up a run or 2 on a worse day, and strike out 9. The offense won't do diddly squat, and you'll lose somehow. So like, it's just, I can't, and even like going back, say to last week when we're talking about the Mets, I never would have expected that offensive outpouring and that level of competency on a baseball field from this team. And thinking about how well that series went right now doesn't feel real. That does not feel like it happened 4 or 5 days ago. It simply doesn't. This is a completely different baseball team that we watched over the weekend. Do they inspire confidence for me to go out and figure it out? I hope. I mean, you have to, that's just what you have to hope that they go out there and do that, Colton. I agree. Castillo versus Falter, you obviously have the pitching advantage, but game 3, I mean, you're sitting at the advantage again, I would say. Who is Jake Woodford? I've never heard of this person.
Who's listed? For me, it says TBD.
Okay, on Fangraphs, it says Jake Woodford. Many times Fangraphs have led me astray. So I will not put any stock in the Jake Woodford. I've never heard of this name before in my life. But it is George Kirby who, after his blow-up start, really said, like, you know, I'm ready to go out there and compete again. Like, he basically said, like, I'm going to flush it. I'm a gamer. Like, let's go do it again. And does he pose a better chance against the Pirates for whatever reason? If Kirby's tipping against the Tigers or something, I don't know. Like, what do they know that other teams aren't that is allowing them to see George Kirby? Because I just simply don't get it. And Jake Woodford, I mean, I'm looking at his page. He's got a 5.87 ERA on the year. So, like, 7 innings of shutout ball, right?
More than likely, yeah. And I think that I don't know. Furious George is going to come out there. He's going to be pumping like nearly 100 in the first inning.
102. He's going to set his career high.
He's going to be throwing hard in the first inning. I don't know. I think that's going to be an interesting game to watch just because I don't know what can you expect out of the next start from the worst start we've seen in a very long time from any of our starting pitchers, let alone it being George Kirby. And so I don't know. That's a game where I do expect George to pitch well because it's the Pirates. They're not a great team, but it all comes back down to the offense, Joe. And I want to ask you, why do you think it is that the Mariners could take 2 of 3 from the Phillies, right? They could then lose 2 of 3 to the Tigers, sweep the Mets, and then get swept by the Tigers. How does that happen to this baseball team? How is that where we find ourselves here on August 15th? How is that possible?
I'm going to chalk it up to 2 things. The first being AL Central voodoo magic. Mm-hmm. There's no rhyme or reason that those teams should be able to BAPIP the hell out of whatever baseball team they want to at any given moment. And the second, I think it does come down to upping the intensity against those good teams. Like, you hear it a lot, and not just like Mariners baseball, but a lot of sports. Teams play up to their opponents and they play down to their opponents. Like, that's just something that happens. You rise to the occasion when you need to, and sometimes maybe you get caught lacking when you feel like you can coast through a game. If there's one word that I would describe the second and third games for the Tigers as the Mariners offense looked, it was coasting. They were coasting through that game, going downhill, but not resulting in anything. There was nothing to show for them in games 2 and 3 that would say that they should have been coasting, especially after the rinsing that they got in the first game. They're just playing down to their opponents. And what is the thing to fix that? I mean, if it's a coaching change to light the fire underneath their butts, go for it. I mean, is it a little late sitting here on August 15th? I don't know. I've seen
40 games left.
Yeah, we've seen weirder things, but I don't know. Do you have something else other than AL Central voodoo magic and just playing down to your opponents?
Nope. I think that's exactly what it is. And I don't know why these guys can't seem to get the intensity going versus bad baseball teams. Like, you're in a playoff race versus your most hated rival. How is that not enough to get your blood boiling a little bit and say, we're going to go out there and we're going to win the whole damn thing? It just makes no sense to me. I do look at the 2 losses in the first Tiger series and then the second 2 losses in this series. And I say, look, the Mariners were very close to winning all 4 of those games. Very close.
Mm-hmm.
And we could be talking about a whole totally different thing right now. If basically, let's say they just get 1 more win in each series. We would have such a totally different feel about where we're at. Realistically, we're complaining the most about like 2 wins.
Yeah.
Like in the grand scheme of things, that those 2 wins could be what keeps you out of the playoffs. And the fact that even if you look at the last 2 games in this series, the Jimmy Garcia just falling apart in the first loss, and then today when you had Jimmy Garcia allowing another run, and then Andres Munoz throwing the worst pitch I've ever seen him throw. Like, it is just so there. This, even with how bad the offense has been, the pitching staff has still almost gotten them multiple wins in that time frame. And if the offense could just be a tick better, score 1 more run, we're not even talking about this. Like, this would not be a problem. But it didn't happen. And because of that, the only thing that makes sense is the intensity. Like, they don't have the fire playing against a team like the Tigers. They don't. It's not there. And because of that, you're going to probably, the way it seems right now, be sitting on the couch in October watching the Astros go to the championship series again. Plain and simple. It's been really frustrating to watch the Seattle Mariners play baseball over the past couple of weeks. There's been some very high points, but there's mainly been a bunch of low points. And for us, it's been extremely difficult to make these episodes of the Hit It Here podcast. So thank you guys for watching, because it does mean a lot. And thank you for watching episode 113 of the Hit It Here podcast, presented by Bet Online, the hole in my wall episode of the podcast. And go Mariners, I think.